Hello, this is Tim Fox for class SAT 3511. It, this project, 5.1, is just the introduction. Actually, there's going to be two additional uh, projects that I'm going to be talking about more in detail in later videos. The specifications for this overall project was the first one. Previously, the forest function level was at server 2008 R2. Well, I came up with a scenario where I wanted all my domain controllers to be 2012 R2. So I go over that in project 5.2 in more detail and how I upgraded the forest function level to 2012 R2. And then the second video is when I did the distributed file system, when I implemented that in my new domain. And then I demonstrate it actually working. Also, as a precursor, I've stripped out the extra forest. I deleted the child domains, and I just concentrated just on the root domain of SAT3511fox.com forest. I just thought it was just simpler instead of having to go through and just repeat all the steps over and over and over again for each one of the servers, because when I upgraded the forest function level, I had to install one server for another server. It just made it a lot easier. Okay, well, this concludes the introduction. Hello, this is Tim Fox. This is project 5.2, upgrading domain function level. Previously in my SAT 3511 fox.com forest, I had other domain controllers and a cross forest truss. I've since deleted all that because today I'm going to be focusing on promoting the forest function level to server 2012 R2. Currently, it's at server 2008 R2. So there are 5 steps that I'll have to perform. Step 1, install server 2012 R2 in the domain, which I've already done to save time. I've also added the Active Directory role on each of those, but I haven't joined them to the domain. The second step will be run AD prep on server 2008 R2. So I will do that right now. Okay, the first thing I want to show is you go to this directory after you insert the server 2012 R2 CD-ROM in. You go to support and AD prep. From there, you'll just simply type AD prep, forest prep. And right now it says access is denied, and I'm going to show you why. But before I do that, the effective permissions that the user has to have is these 3: domain admin, enterprise, and schema admin. If you add more group memberships, it could possibly error out too, but at the very minimum, these 3 have to be there. I recommend just creating a separate user for this upgrade functionality. There is a registry workaround, however, I will not be covering it, and it is highlighted on TechNet how to do it. Now, the reason I don't have access to that directory is natively you don't have access to the system files. So here I'm going to go and browse to the directory. Just go to Windows, Debug, and then hit Continue. And then it will set my permissions on the directory automatically. Now when I type this command, adprep/forest prep, it will ask me to hit C to continue, which I want to do. And I've already done it. All it does is it just lists a bunch of status. It's nothing to look at. Or you could have just typed any other key and then enter to quit. So I've already prepped this machine for the domain, and it does take a while, I don't know, 5-10 minutes depending. The second step is going back here. The second step is to promote my server 2012 R2 machine to a domain controller. So that's fairly simple and straightforward. This is server 2012. Now you just can't type DC promo on this. There's a couple of ways to do it. One way using notifications, and then I can promote it to a domain controller. Or I can go under the Active Directory domain services, and I can go more, where it says configuration required. And then just click promote this server to a domain controller. This usually takes a minute. Now I'm going to add the domain controller to an existing domain, give it my credentials, and there's my domain. Now I just next. And then the rest of it is just next, next, next. So yes, I'm going to add the DNS server to it and the global catalog. So the rest of this is just the normal install procedure. So I won't be going over that. On step 4, I'll be transferring the roles, and it's the same on server 2012. So it's not, I will be just briefly showing that, and then verify new function level. Okay, to continue on with step 5, verify the new function level. This is LA5, and this is the new server 2012 R2. So I've already went ahead and I've upgraded the domain function level, which I will show here. And domain mode is set to 2012 R2. And now further, I will show the forest mode. And the forest mode is 2012 R2 forest. Now I've just transferred all the roles onto one server. I found it was easier. And then I can separate the roles later if I'd like. But what I did do is I added a second server for a domain controller. And then also I had if you look right here, I have a third server as the read-only domain controller. So that is verified the new function level and specifications 1 through 5 are completed. Hello, this is Tim Fox. I will be talking about project 5.3, distributed file system. Previously, I upgraded the domain functionality to server 2012 R2. Now I want to incorporate the DFS file system. So the first thing I had to do was install the DFS role on all the servers I wanted to use, and then I wanted to add a namespace. So I will show the DFS manager right here. So this is my domain controller, and I've added a namespace. I can expand this a little. It's just called training. And then under it, I have folders. On this first folder, they're all identical as far as the specifications go. So I have replication set up for server LA5 and LA6. And if I click on replication, I can see that it is enabled. And here is the direct path locally for each server. And then I'm going to show one more thing. On each server, I've created a hierarchy of folders. On LA5, it's under shared, training, and then there's those 3 folders. Going back here, I just want to show something. DFS roots. These are all the shortcut to the UNC pass. So this won't do anything. So I had to create a separate hierarchy. And here we can see I created one from my workstation, which I'll be creating another in an example. So I did the same thing on LA6. The hierarchy, as you see for LA6, is slightly different. I just wanted to show that it could be different. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. And then that's true for the Microsoft and the Red Hat folders. So now I'll go on to the workstation 1, and here I will just start it over. I will type the UNC path. Well, I'll just type that. Now we see these folders, which is exactly, whoops, not that one. I didn't mean to click on that. Which is exactly, you don't want to click on those. What you want to do is go here, and then I can access them that way. So here I will create another file. So it has a different file name. And then while I'm at it, I'm just going to Okay, now hopefully it's replicated by now. I'll go to LA5, and here we see it's replicated on that server. And then the Microsoft one. Now let's check LA6. LA6 has it. You can see in the address bar I'm locally on the server, so I can go to Microsoft, and there it works. So that worked successfully. And when I was doing all this, I wanted to see how much disk usage I was doing. So I started over here. You'll notice I have performance counters. Let me minimize all this other stuff. There. I've created a performance counter sheet. Because this is a dedicated server, basically I just do this lab and other experiments on with 2 hard drives, one being for the operating system. Well, there's actually 2 hard drives for that. It's in a RAID 0 configuration. And then the second hard drive is D, which is just one hard drive. So I have all of these virtual machines running. Well, here, let me organize this by running. I have all these running right now on one hard drive, and I wanted to find out what the usage was while I was working with these machines. So you can see this number, disk write bytes per second, gets fairly high. It gets even way higher than that. And then disk read gets really, really high. But the processor time, these barely peg. But it's mainly the physical disk. So things did slow down and they took a lot longer than I anticipated because of it. If we go back to my Hyper-V manager, just a quick background here. I'm using a machine I call UAR Connect. This is a Windows 8 machine, and this is how I interface with my Hyper-V machine. And my Hyper-V is just Hyper-V 2012 Core Edition, which I call UAR Core Project. And going back to LA5, I'll show how I had to set up DNS on both servers. So I have a forward lookup zone set and a reverse lookup zone set. And then if we look at the hierarchy here, we see I have Fox server set up, and that's my router, basically. And I did that because I had a dedicated IP address, just an internal dedicated IP address, but rather than have my domain get my test domain, get displayed throughout the rest of the network, that's why I set up this Windows machine for that. And the DNS on that was fairly tricky, which I will show the configurations here. It seems pretty simple, but there's no forward lookup zones, there's no reverse lookup zones. It's just a conditional forwarder. That's all I have set up. And I have NAT set up. So I have 2 networks here. That's just another network I was testing on. But this is my main network, my 10 network. And then WAN, that's the public side of this. And then as you see, there's nothing else in here that matters. Well, that's just the general tab. That just is a summary. But these conditional forwards had to be set, and this NAT had to be set. Okay, this concludes the specifications overview for project 5.3. I have demonstrated all 4 of these specifications. I've even verified the functionality. And also this concludes this project. The DFS was quite challenging. It seems simple now, but my biggest hurdle was understanding that I had to create the folders locally, but I couldn't map them to the DFS share. And I'll explain what that means. Go to server 5. So I mentioned before that I had to create folders locally. Well, I also mentioned that there's this DFS roots folder. That's the DFS shares. If you click on that, open that up, well, I showed this before. This won't do anything. So for a long time, I couldn't figure out why. And so I just tried creating, whoops, wrong one. I just tried creating an extra folder there. And then with that in mind, I was able to create my namespace. And then with my namespace, I was able to create my folders. So I can show that really quick. It's not going to work because I haven't created any folder locally. But I just name the folder. I'll just give it a target. We'll use server LA5. You want to make sure you click this option down here. Give it a share name. Browse. At first, I was using DFS roots. Yeah. I was creating folders under that subtree. And that's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to go under here and create a new folder, or create it locally on the computer first. Now it shows up under my shared folders. And now it's under my folder target. And that's it. I didn't set it up on a socket server as you saw, but it's the same process. And then at the end, it's just going to ask you if you want to set up replication. And it will just, it's a replication wizard that it just appears. You just click all the defaults and it'll give you a status telling you it's good or what failed, and that's it. And then replication is set up. Okay, well, thanks for listening. This does conclude the lab and the lessons learned.